As a parent, how many times have you tried to make your children sit and learn something, only for them to start running around or be distracted by something else after just a few minutes? It can be frustrating. When it also happens at school, it can be concerning for parents. Some might even wonder if their child is suffering from a mental disorder, more specifically, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. Maybe an ADHD diagnosis could be a straightforward fix to the problem. If so, you're not alone. The increasing awareness of ADHD has led to a consistent rise in the number of children diagnosed with and treated for it. According to the National Health Interview Survey's annual reports, around 10% of children now are diagnosed with ADHD. A sharp increase from around 6% in 2002. And in 2022 there is now an Adderall shortage across the United States. Adderall is one of the drugs used to treat ADHD. So, it's not an exaggeration to say that we're now facing an ADHD epidemic. However, is the increasing awareness the only reason that ADHD diagnosis keeps rising? Is there another reason behind it? Even if ADHD diagnosis keeps rising, it's not like it suddenly exploded overnight. So, why is there a shortage in its drug supply? Let's find out. But first, before answering all those questions, we need to understand, what is ADHD? Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, is one of the most common neurodevelopmentally disorders of childhood. It is usually first diagnosed in childhood and often lasts into adulthood. Children with ADHD may have trouble paying attention, controlling impulsive behaviors, may act without thinking about what the result will be, or be overly active. It is normal for children to have trouble focusing and behaving at one time or another. However, children with ADHD do not just grow out of these behaviors because it's caused by permanent brain impairment. The symptoms continue, can be severe, and can cause difficulty at school, at home, or with friends. There are 3 different ways ADHD presents itself, depending on which types of symptoms are strongest. The first one is the predominantly inattentive presentation. Someone with this type will have difficulty organizing or finishing a task, paying attention to details, or following instructions or conversations. They are easily distracted or forget details of daily routines. The second type is the predominantly hyperactive impulsive presentation. This type will usually fidget and talks a lot. It is hard to sit still for long, for example, for a meal or while doing homework. Smaller children may run, jump or climb constantly. They also feel restless and have trouble with impulsivity. Someone who is impulsive may interrupt others a lot, grab things from people, or speak at inappropriate times. It is hard for them to wait their turn or listen to directions. It can also cause them to have more accidents and injuries than others. And the third type is a combination of the first 2. Someone with this type will have symptoms from the previous 2 types. It can be seen that the symptoms of ADHD can vary greatly. And these symptoms can be caused by other mental disorders like anxiety, depression, sleep problems, and certain types of learning disabilities. So, how do psychiatrists diagnose ADHD? Well, there is no single test that can be used to diagnose ADHD. There are no physiological markers to point to in identifying ADHD. One step of the process involves having a medical exam, including hearing and vision tests, to rule out other problems with symptoms like ADHD. Diagnosing ADHD usually includes a checklist for rating ADHD symptoms and taking a history of the child from parents, teachers, and sometimes, the child. This is why diagnosing ADHD is not a straightforward process. There's a growing concern that the reason behind the rise of ADHD diagnoses in recent years is not just because of increased awareness, but also because of overdiagnosis. The US has significantly more ADHD cases than other developed countries, meaning that it's more likely that it's being misdiagnosed. In countries like Australia and the United Kingdom, the number of children diagnosed with ADHD hovers around 5%. Half of the 10% number in the United States. Middle and high school age children are the age most commonly diagnosed with ADHD, but they are also at the age where we see depression and anxiety diagnoses rise significantly. These diagnoses share symptoms that overlap with ADHD, and many times, children with ADHD have other diagnoses as well. A better understanding of the various presentations of ADHD has also expanded the criteria for who might fit the diagnosis. Hyperactivity used to be the primary component of the disorder until the American Psychiatric Association deemed inattention as another potential determining factor. This change increased the number of girls diagnosed with ADHD, as they are more likely to fit this presentation, while boys are more likely to demonstrate observable hyperactive symptoms. However, what's truly behind the significant increase in ADHD diagnoses is probably something more cynical. While ADHD can't be cured, there's a way to treat it to a manageable level by using a combination of behavior therapy and medication. While behavioral therapy should be the first line of treatment, more and more doctors and parents are choosing a more direct approach by using medication. A report from CDC in 2016 stated that among all children 2 to 17 years of age with ADHD, researchers found that 62% were taking medication to treat their ADHD. Drugs such as Adderall and Ritalin are used to treat ADHD. The key component of these drugs is amphetamine, a strong central nervous system stimulant. It is a controlled substance and has a high potential for abuse. If you ever watched Breaking Bad, it's the same substance Walter White makes. It can be addictive because it releases dopamine, a hormone linked with addiction when you take them. A report released by the Government Accountability Office has found that pharmaceutical companies have been targeting school-aged children as potential customers for their dopamine-stimulating drugs. These drugs are used to treat ADHD and generate billions of dollars in revenue for these companies, making it all too convenient for some doctors to quickly diagnose kids with the disorder and prescribe medication. And the scariest part is that these drugs are truly effective. They can help a person become highly focused and productive. It is so effective that it is widely used in schools and colleges. To obtain better academic results, students have been turning to these drugs to help them focus on their studies. Students can now easily obtain them through prescriptions for themselves or through their schoolmates. It is also widespread in professional sports like Major League Baseball. While steroids have received most of the mainstream media coverage, anyone who really knows about baseball knows that amphetamines have always been a much more pervasive part of the game. When the MLB banned stimulants like Adderall and Ritalin after the 2005 season, the number of players claiming and obtaining therapeutic use exemptions for stimulants nearly quadrupled from 28 to 103. Therapeutic use means you can justifiably use the drug because you need it for a medical condition. If you didn't have the condition, you'd just be a normal pro baseball player, and the attention-focusing benefits of Ritalin would be a form of enhancement, or in other words, cheating. Before the ban, only 28 players had therapeutic use exemptions, allowing them to take drugs such as Ritalin or Adderall. 28. Then somehow magically that number jumps almost 4 times as soon as the ban kicks in? Do they think people are that dumb? However, there's a bigger question to be asked here. How can ADHD diagnoses multiply 4-fold in a sport in a single year? How can it become so widespread overnight? Is it contagious? We know the answer to these questions. No, it's not contagious, and there's no way for so many adults in a single sport to suddenly develop ADHD in a single year. Then, the only conclusion we can take is that it's that easy to obtain an ADHD diagnosis. This gives further credence to the notion that ADHD is being overdiagnosed in the US. It is becoming an epidemic, but it's a made-up epidemic. Maybe a student is having trouble focusing on their studies, or an athlete is struggling to focus on the field. They go to their doctor, and voila, they are diagnosed with ADHD, and it becomes legal for them to take amphetamine. While many people struggle to stay focused, not all of them should be diagnosed with ADHD. This problem also results in limited resources being stretched thinner among more children, ultimately taking resources away from those who truly need them. And this is starting to become a real problem with the recent Adderall shortage. While taking these stimulants can give one a sudden performance boost, whether in school or in sports, it is worth noting that these drugs are not without side effects. When you take these drugs, your body releases dopamine. It's a hormone that makes you feel good. Long-term alteration of dopamine levels from Adderall use can rewire our brain's reward center, and make it harder to feel pleasure without the drug. The more frequently Adderall is used, the stronger these changes become. You may develop tolerance and will need more Adderall to feel the same desired effects. When you become dependent on Adderall, you might have trouble sleeping and concentrating, notice a lack of motivation, and feel depressed, irritable, lethargic, or fatigued when it is removed from the body. Abusing amphetamines like Adderall may raise the risk of aggression and suicidal thoughts. According to the journal Molecular Psychiatry, long-term use of an amphetamine stimulant or Adderall withdrawal may cause psychosis and schizophrenia-like symptoms, such as paranoid delusions, hallucinations, and other behavioral or mood disturbances. Anxiety and panic attacks may also be triggered by Adderall use. Stimulants like Adderall don't only affect your mental health. It can also affect your body. It raises body temperature, heart rate, and blood pressure, and repeated use or abuse, particularly in high doses, can create a range of medical issues from a stroke to a seizure to a heart attack. Adderall can cause damage to the heart and cardiovascular system when used for a prolonged period of time, especially when used in excess. The most common ADHD medication cardiovascular problems reported are high blood pressure and tachycardia, or irregular heart rate. The rise of ADHD diagnosis is something that should concern us all and become a part of our conversation around mental health awareness. And the increasing abuse of ADHD medication should be taken seriously, especially when we consider the long-term effects of these drugs and the potential for lifelong harmful effects. We should not turn a blind eye to this growing epidemic but instead take steps to prevent it from spiraling out of control. By taking precautions in diagnosing ADHD and monitoring those who are prescribed stimulants like Adderall, we can help to prevent further problems before they become too big. Increased awareness and understanding of ADHD, as well as the risks associated with stimulant medication like Adderall, will also go a long way in curbing this growing problem. With more information available about effective treatments for ADHD, maybe we can make a difference and turn this crisis around. So, what do you think about this ADHD epidemic? Do you know someone suffering from ADHD? What do you think about the widespread use of stimulants like Adderall and Ritalin in school and sports? Let us know in the comment section below. Click like and share if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more videos like this.